Boys, today we're talking about a pretty divisive topic, but one that needs to be discussed. Does Borderlands 4 have an endgame issue, and how are we going to move on from here? This has been a big topic since launch, with people saying that there's just nothing to do in the game. Now, as someone who is nearing 300 hours on the game, I think I'm at the point where I'm ready to talk about my thoughts on this topic, and actually, playtime pertains a lot to this discussion, as we're going to get to in a moment. Now, for full transparency, I have made a tweet already giving my thoughts on Endgame and how I mentioned that I think there's actually a lot to do in Borderlands 4, but even though I do feel that way, that doesn't mean I can't also spot a lot of the issues people are talking about. And so today we're going to talk about that, but before we get into it, I'd appreciate it if you could sub to the channel. We're on our way through the 80k mark now, and I would appreciate it if you would take the time to sub. It takes 2 seconds. Alright, so let's get into this and let's talk about the first major topic around this whole situation that I keep seeing over and over and over again. Various content creators in the community that have been calling this out have come under fire from people who either cosplay as fans or people who just seem to want to argue a lot, and it happens on Twitter specifically, and they're often hit with the sentence, "You had early access, you had 200 hours, so I don't want to hear what you have to say, of course you're bored of the game." Now, for the record, I do think what people are saying here does have some degree of a point. Yes, the more hours you put into a game, the more you're going to start to get burnt out on it, and I don't think lashing out over the state of the game because of that is really fair at all. I do think there are definitely creators who, regardless of how much endgame there is in the game, are going to complain no matter what. But I do also believe there is some genuine honest criticism in there that can be lobbied towards the devs, that is getting shut down and suppressed because people don't want to engage in conversation, so they're unfairly lumping creators into that group when they shouldn't be. In fact, back when Wonderlands released, I came under fire for the same thing, with people telling me that my feedback is pointless because I had 400 hours in the game, so what I was saying didn't make any sense. And then they would later go on to complain about the very same thing. So it's almost as if I was warning people of what was to come, but no one cared because they would just rather shut down conversation. So this is, I think, my biggest point with this topic. I think telling content creators that what they're saying is invalidated because of their playtime is a cheap way to shut down conversation. And I don't think these people actually care about the topic enough to want to talk about it. They just get annoyed seeing the posts go onto their timeline and they want to respond to it with something snarky. I think if you actually wanted to have an adult conversation about this topic and you didn't agree with someone's complaints and thought that it pertained to their playtime, you could just vocalize that in a back and forth discussion. But telling someone, you content creators have 300 hours and then you ruin everything, it's a cheap way to shut down conversation, and it's a tactic often used by people who aren't very intelligent and aren't informed on what they're talking about, and you see it everywhere, and you see it a lot with many things in the game, and it's most famously used when talking about nerfs, that it's a PvE game, so they'll use this as a rebuttal instead of actually vocalizing why they feel the way they do. They'll just, fall back and use something as a scapegoat. So that's my my little take on the whole content creator discussion. But let's move on. Let's talk about the core of this problem and why it's coming up to begin with, right? We're talking about the difference between endgame content and endgame tailored activities. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, I am personally of the opinion that right now in Borderlands 4, we have launched with perhaps some of the most things to do in any Borderlands game period. So let's quickly go over some of the things that you have the option of doing when you hit endgame in Borderlands 4. First of all, we have 3, technically 4 vault bosses, which is no different in my mind to farming Grave Ward over and over again in Borderlands 3. We've got the shinies, which everybody is hunting down right now, and there is 69 of these to go over. We've got the big encore each week, which turns bosses into basically true trials bosses or something a little more appropriate for where we're at in the life cycle of the game. We've got the weekly wildcard missions, which are basically strikes from Destiny. And we've also got the Maurice's Black Market, which you can go and check out each week. We've also got the grind in specialization levels and the side content you've not already completed from the main game. And apart from that, you can also go and max out all your SDUs if you haven't. So that's what there is for you to do at Endgame, but what about the actual Endgame tailored content, stuff that has been created specifically for Endgame? Well, at that point, we have drastically less options. We have the grind for UVH levels up to UVH 5, which isn't repeatable, it's over when it's over. You've got the weekly wildcard missions as we went over, the Maurice's Black Market vending machine as we went over, and the big encore machine as well. So, not much, right? In terms of actual endgame tailored activities, not much. But in, comparison to other games, what did we have that was endgame tailored in Borderlands 3 at launch? Well, we had slaughters, and there was only 3 of them, but the gameplay never changed. So, in that sense, that monotonous grind hasn't exactly improved in Borderlands 4, and we also had Chaos Chambers and then the PLCs, which were just basically the exact same gameplay in Wonderland. So this isn't new. It's not new to launch a Borderlands game and have this endgame, which is the same as this endgame, or it's the same gameplay as this portion of the endgame. It's not new. But one thing that I do think is important to point out is just because it's always been like that, it doesn't mean that's okay and something we need to put up with or accept. It doesn't mean that it's something you defend, and it doesn't mean it's a strength of Borderlands 4. Not by any means. While we have stuff to do in this game, I made the comparison that the Vault Bosses is no different to farming Grave Ward in Borderlands 3, right? And again, I went over all the things you can do at Endgame, but how much of that do you actually care about doing? Because it doesn't matter how much you've got if no one wants to do it, right? I've always held the opinion that Borderlands needs to focus on quantity over quality for endgame. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I don't mean that I want trash quality content in the game. I just mean that I would rather have 10 Guardian takedowns as opposed to 1 Maliwan takedown, right? I want stuff to do, not one thing that's just very good. We saw that with Wonderlands was a very popular opinion. A lot of people liked the Chaos Chambers, but they got bored very, very quickly and they wanted something new. So how much of this do you actually want to do? Not much at all, right? I mean, again, in Borderlands 4, what am I doing at endgame right now? Well, I'm doing the big encores to get shinies, and I'm farming bosses. Of course, as a content creator, I'm doing the Maurice vending machine, but that's about it. And yes, I'm finishing side content, but the point is, am I actually interacting with any of the tailored endgame content because I want to play it? No. I'm not farming the encore bosses because I think it's fun. I'm doing it because I want the shinies, and I think the shinies are fun. I'm not playing the weekly wildcard missions because I think they are pointless. If I want a legendary, I'll go and get it, and in the span of time it's going to take me to get it, I would enjoy that much more than playing through a wildcard mission with unfun modifiers which are going to shut down playstyles. I don't find that to be fun. Again, a dedicated legendary is not going to make me farm a mission 6 times or 7 times. It's just not fun. And to be candid for a second, the game launching with that as the main attraction of Endgame is laughable, to be honest, and shows that we didn't really learn much from Borderlands 3. Now, so how are we going to move forward from here, right? What's actually coming in Borderlands 4? What is next for Borderlands 4 that's going to fix this issue? Well, let's see. We have Pearlescent Rarity coming back, which is fantastic news, and we also have an Invincible coming, not to mention that we're getting DLCs that are going to be story related. And this is great. For a player like me, this is great, but there's just one problem. Borderlands 4 is adding endgame content that a lot of players do not like. Now, of course, this is a controversial statement to make. I love Invincibles and I love Pearls, and I don't want to give off the impression in this video that this is not popular endgame activity to add to Borderlands 4. People love this stuff. In fact, I think you'll find more people that love it than people who do not. The problem is, there are people who did not like Invincibles in Borderlands 2, and there are people who hated Pearlescence in Borderlands 2, so this isn't going to bring them back to the game if they're bored right now. What we actually need in Borderlands 4 is endgame mobbing content, which we have not yet had. There really is not much endgame mobbing at all, if any, in Borderlands 4, and this is a major problem. Many characters have kill skills, and that makes their entire gameplay loop around killing mobs, and in a boss fight you're not going to see much of this at all. Now the problem with this is that it's not hard to kill mobs in Borderlands 4 right now, and so because of that, everybody is just gearing their builds towards killing bosses, and at that point skill trees are losing a lot of utility unless they can proc their kill skills without having to actually kill ads. Now this is a major problem because, again, there's no end game mobbing in Borderlands 4. While we do have stuff in the game like the Gordello world event or the airship world event or the creep invasion world event, this stuff is random, it's not repeatable, and it's not difficult at all. Honestly, what I would like to see Gearbox do is take these world events, make them repeatable or make them cycle every 15 to 30 minutes in the world guaranteed, and ramp the difficulty up on them. Make them extremely difficult. Or additionally, have there be heroic rifts that can appear in the world. If you're not familiar with what a rift is right now, it's when you see that massive bubble while you're out driving in the world, and you go inside and a boss spawns and you fight the boss. But the problem is, that's just more bossing. We need endgame content that has mobbing, and that's where we get to our final topic, which is, what does Borderlands 4 need right now? Well look, the easiest thing to mention is takedowns, right? Gearbox mentioned that Borderlands 4 doesn't have takedowns, and that the reasoning for this is because elements of takedowns have instead been splashed across the game and put elsewhere, and they've taken what they learned from takedowns to apply it to other elements of the game. And my answer to this is why? Why? I've always said for the longest time that Borderlands has a real problem with having to accept the why not both mentality, right? I can appreciate that elements of a takedown have been put elsewhere in the game and that strength has been applied to other areas, but that does not mean I want takedowns removed. In fact, I'll give you an example of this because CZ recently asked me, he said, "Hey Epic, let me ask you a question. The game has shinies. Had they not brought back pearls, would you have been happy with shinies?" And my answer was, no. No, I would not have. Not because shinies aren't great, and not because they're not rare like a pearl is, but because, quite frankly, why not both? Again, I believe that Borderlands 4, when it comes to endgame, or Borderlands in general, needs to adopt a quantity over quality mindset. Now, again, to be clear before people twist my words, this does not mean I want low quality content by any means. What this means is, I am okay with getting something that isn't up to par with Maliwan Takedown, but isn't bad either, and getting 15 of that over just one Maliwan Takedown. I want substance, I want things to do, and I want there to be stuff for every single player in this game. I don't want pearls coming back and being the only thing they're bringing back. I want takedowns back as well, and I do want invincibles back, and even if I don't like slaughters, I want slaughters back as well, because if there is something for me to do, there should be something for someone else to do. Add a Digistruct raid boss fighting arena, you know? Add an enemy multiplier event or something. Do world events that we can take part in every week that give us higher chances at certain manufacturers. Hey, those weekly wildcard missions, which I will never have any interest in doing, start putting unique items behind them. One of the reasons why I did takedowns was because they had unique items. I would not run the Maliwan takedown ever again if it did not drop anything new. I don't find mobbing to be fun. I find unique gameplay and unique rewards to be fun, which is why takedowns stood out. The Proving Grounds from Borderlands 3 were also very good, and they did not return here. However, the Vault encounters are comparable to that of a Proving Ground, and so I wouldn't mind seeing Gearbox add an option for, let's say, hardcore vaults, where you go in and they force you to replay the mobbing sections, and if you die, you start all over again, and then make it so that the boss at the end has a higher chance for dedicated raids. That would be really cool. Of course, we know we have vault cards coming to the game as well, but again, none of this matters because These rewards are fine, but what players actually want is unique content where they can go and test their builds and make it so it's not cookie cutter, right? They don't want to farm a boss over and over and over again. They want to mix it up. They want to do mobbing, then a boss, then mobbing, then a boss, or maybe they want just pure mobbing. But having there be no option for players right now is a massive problem, and it is shocking to me that the game launched with no endgame content. And there, I said it. There is no tailored endgame content in Borderlands 4, and while I am still having an absolute blast with the game, that does not invalidate the opinions of other people, and it certainly does not invalidate the opinions of content creators just because they're doing their job. If I turn around to a content creator and say, hey, you have 400 hours on the game, I don't want to hear you talk, buddy. How ignorant, right? How ignorant for me to say that. How stubborn do you have to be to sit there and purposefully ignore and speak against the people who literally cover the game for a job, for a living, and say to them, no. Your complaints, your feedback is not valid because I've determined it's not. I think that is a cheap way to shut down conversation, and I hope Gearbox are listening to those content creators and understanding where they're coming from. There is a lot of advancements in Borderlands 4, from dedicated farming being there day one, shinies being there day one, having that endgame loot grind day one, the firmware system, which is far better and has a lot of replayability to build crafting. There is so much this game has to offer, but we are still lacking in one area, and I don't think we need to settle for less. I think we can ask, and we should be asking, to add takedowns to this game, if not in the first year, in the second year. Because if they're not in the game, I think we're going to struggle a lot, and I would really hate to see the player base dwindle, all because this game has once again failed to capture people in the endgame department. But there you go, that's my feedback on endgame in Borderlands 4. This video has been planned for a little bit, but I didn't want to rush it out, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give me your thoughts in the comment section down below, and please keep it civil. And also, if I could ask a favor from you, if you see people on Twitter trying to shut down conversation, call them out on it. Don't let that kind of behavior become a norm in the community. Let's push for people to be better, because when we do that, we get better things out of Gearbox, and I think that's important. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like on it. Consider subscribing to the channel if you enjoy my content, and if you didn't, don't watch another video from mine. Alright, thanks guys, and have a good rest of your day.